DI traps are really something that you should take care of. I had already given a lot of mocks, a lot of sectionals, so it just made sense to at least appear for the exam marks. On the worst days, on the days when you don't want to do it, what you do on those days is what counts.
Congratulations on the 97th percentile score you got this month. And I would just like to highlight on the score breakup right there. You had shared this screenshot with Rich as soon as you got the score, right? So the score is you're on the 97th percentile with the 85th percentile on quant. Verbal, you massively did really well, 91 percentile, and data insights, even better. 98th percentile. So when you saw this score, were you happy? Were you disappointed? There was a moment of relief. What happened?
I think relief was definitely a feeling, but also it was a lot of shock for me because going into the exam, honestly, there was no expectations.
Right.
Uh, but I think it was post the exam I realized that all the practice that builds up to that point is what allowed me to get a decent score. So it was an initial shock for sure.
So, but then you're overall happy with the score, right? Because this is definitely doable. Did you have any particular schools in mind? So essentially, you get to apply for 5 schools. Did you already send your scores to any of those schools, or you're yet to decide?
I'm yet to decide. The thing is that I actually thought of appearing for GMAT before I had started my job.
Right.
And so after I started the job, I'm not sure if I would be applying this year itself. So that is why I'm still considering it. I think I'm
That's
still.
Yes, so at least getting done with the GMAT. We'll talk a little bit more on how this entire thought process came into being in terms of why now, why giving GMAT, all of that. But before we just progress towards do you recall how many questions you'd gotten wrong in each of these sections?
I can give you an approximate. So in data insights, I got I think two wrong, one or two wrong.
Right.
In verbal also I got two wrong, and in quants I got three wrong.
Okay. Data insights and verbal you almost match, but could be more most likely the position of the question could have been, in the earlier
Right.
stage. That is why the percentile kind of dropped. All right. So that's okay. But Garima, could you tell about yourself as to what are you currently doing and how did this entire GMAT journey, how did you embark on this? What inspired you to get started with this GMAT journey? And how did top 1% come in being for you when that happened?
Right. So I did my bachelor's in economics from St. Xavier's, and I'm currently working at Reshore Renewable Investments.
Mm.
The idea for GMAT actually started last year. This much clarity I always had that I wanted to go for GMAT and not CAT.
Right,
Simply, it's a personal choice,
right.
and so there, of course, studying outside India was something that was definitely on my mind. So that is how my journey into GMAT started. I actually started preparing last year. There was a lot of back and forth over here, ki whether I want to give the GMAT now, and then my job started. So there was definitely a lot of back and forth. And so in Xavier specifically, I think all the people who prepare for GMAT sort of get their tuitions from top 1%. So
It
that is how I came to hear about it. And yeah, that is where I started.
I recall, I think the very first time we started, I mean, as a part of one of the students at St. Xavier's, they wanted Sandeep Gupta to come to their college and then speak about it. And then I think it became like almost very regularly, an hour, 2 hour session, especially during the fest. And this was like, one of the things that really a lot of students did enjoy and they come back again and again. So I think probably maybe you were one of the students as well. And look, where we are right now with a great score and the possibility is huge. So what was your initial expectation when you started, and when you look back now that the reality you have the score, did that match or did you have any expectation at all?
So when I started the classes, I think Sandeep sir was always very specific in terms of how you should prepare and what you should expect. So my expectations sort of came into being from whatever he said, and I think into the process when he actually tried to explain the fundamentals, and when the octave actually started, making sense, and I was able to apply it, I think that was when all the expectations actually started coming true.
Coming true. All right. So, were there any particular resources in the material set? All of it. You could be just the questions that is a pre-work material, or the video sessions, or even the mock test portal. Any of it that stood out quite evidently for you in your preparation?
For me, the Quant 700, 800 level PDF,
Ah,
that was pretty helpful. Apart from that, definitely the mock portal, because I think honestly, I was not scoring that well in my mocks. So I think that also gave me a push and sort of tried to help me in understanding what are the specific areas in Quant or in verbal that I'm lacking in. So that was definitely something. And the verbal, as in the entire octave PDF, I think
right.
that.
So we all hit roadblocks at some point in time. It either is with the studies, with verbal being very challenging, or quant being challenging, or simply that not being able to make some time because then there's so many things taking over, of work or even college, whatever. So was there anything that had a roadblock, or you hit a roadblock, and how did you overcome? What was that, and how did you overcome?
So I just got with my undergraduate this year. So
Right.
last year around October, November, I got placed. So
Right.
I started preparing before that, and
Right,
then I got placed. So then I wasn't sure if I wanted to give it. And after that, we had our college exams and everything going on.
right.
And then thought that I might as well just give it a shot. But then I actually shifted to a new city. It was of course a little difficult in the beginning to adjust over there. So then again there was a gap, and then I thought that no, I should get back to studying. So there was definitely a lot of.
So I'm asking all of these questions because this can be a source of inspiration to all of them who are in the similar phase. And I do speak to a couple of them, and they are all in that, all are stuck in this phase, going to a new city, adjusting. And so one of the things take a back, like, GMAT is the one that obviously take a back seat, because then you have to address, you can't fight so many battles at a time. So what was your personal motivation that kind of just, enabled you to come back to studying and get it over with? What was the thought? I know you mentioned that, you might as well get it over with, but that wasn't a easy journey, I would say, because then there were too many things that you had to handle at that time. So how did you come back to re-preparing and restarting that? And was there anything specific you recall that helped you at that time? Personally itself, maybe some motivation, something, right?
So there are two things that I would like to mention over here. One is something that I've always believed in that uh, everybody dreams of getting a good score, right? Everybody, every student who enters into the course wants to get a good score. So dreams are definitely not a differentiator for you. It is always the execution that will get you that edge. So I think that clarity I always had in my mind, that just thinking that I want a good score will not get me there. So that was one thing. And the second thing was, I always had a very strong circle around me, people who would always push me and ask, like, guide me into the right direction. People who had already given the GMAT, or say, for example, the weekend or TOP sessions that we had, where discuss where you are lacking, or my parents, my family. So I have always had that strong circle, and they really pushed me that you should give it. You have worked hard for so many months. So yeah, these are the two things.
That's brilliant. I mean, a very strong support system is extremely crucial in anybody's journey, in anything, not just GMAT and any other. I mean, because then every waking thought, one is you motivating yourself to, be preparing for GMAT, and then everyone around you is also really pushing you that hard. That's extremely great. So, going back to the GMAT preparation, this is often a lot of people, they are like continuously studying. and they do not know when exactly are they ready, right? What is that moment for you that you thought, yes, this is ready, I'm ready, this is the click. You had that moment कि चलो अभी तो GMAT दे देते हैं, let me just go ahead and book my exam date. So what was that moment in your preparation, like that led to booking your date and you're confident to give the GMAT exam?
If I'm being honest, like I told you that while going into the exam, I did not really have any expectations. But I just felt that the entire process that was specifically with regards to the TOP course, I was done with it.
Right.
So it just made sense that you go for it, and even if you don't score that well in your first exam, you at least know where you're
Where you are at.
and where you can work on. So I
Right.
think that's the thought process. I was done with my studies. I had already given a lot of mocks, a lot of sectionals, so it just made sense to at least appear for the exam marks.
So going back to your practice, how many do you recall that how many set of questions had you done? Like 100 passages or like every section before you finally gave your GMAT? By this time, how many would you say? What was the number of questions that you had practiced all throughout?
I had done, like in Quant specifically, I had done all the PDFs that were there in TOP. I
So
don't know the number of questions, but all the PDFs that were there.
it could
Like
be around,
even
yeah,
activity,
800, 900 questions that are easily.
yeah. In Quants, I did everything. In data insights, I only did the sectionals and the other portal that is there by TOP.
Right.
And in verbal, again, I did all the lectures, I did all the questions that were there. So essentially, I covered everything that was given.
Okay, superb. So on the exam day, right, what was the section that you chose? Because you have a fantastic score in DI. So I obviously want to know what was the order of the sections that you chose, and why did you choose that section? I mean, why did you choose that order rather? And did you find yourself running out of time in any of the sections? Like, what was the pacing like?
So verbal, DI, and quants, that was
Right.
the order. The reason I chose this order was simply because I wanted to do all the reading work at the first.
Okay.
So because I feel that my how do you say it? Like my productivity in reading decreases as time goes on. So for me, it was verbal, definitely. After that, in data insight, you still have to do a little bit of reading. And
Uh,
after that, it was quants. And I really did not face any issues with timing. And the idea that you have to do a given set of questions in this much amount of time, that was continuously something that I had taken care of in practice. So I don't think that was a huge issue during the exam itself.
Right. So you were able to comfortably finish all the questions within the same time. So another important thing, because data insight is the new section, and fairly a lot of people are still very apprehensive about how do you go about it. When you've got a 98th percentile. So were there anything surprising in this section or any of the section in the exam that you were like, "Acha, this question is really challenging you." So, or how were the question? Were you able to relate to all of them?
So for DI, the thing is that in the practice, your intuition is built so much that it comes into play during the exam. So say for example, you're doing two-part, right? The questions are very simple. They are not that difficult, but you just have to break down the prompt. Then you have graphs. The graphs are very simple. There are just a few words and few traps that are at play. So I think DI traps are really something that you should take care of.
Right.
After that, if you have data sufficiency, you don't have to necessarily solve the question. With your practice, your intuition is built so much that if you have percentage and you're asked for an answer that is in numbers, you know that you're looking for a option that gives that number.
Correct.
I
Correct.
think it's a lot of intuition that was built through practice.
Right. So this is like almost the last few questions that I have. If you look back and if you have to tell your fellow mates, right? You've been there, done that. Preparing for the GMAT, especially during when you're in college, is that a good idea? What are the do's and don'ts per se? Should you consider? Now that you are in the workforce, right? What is the edge that you think, if you had started preparing right now versus what you've done before, how does that span out? Do you think you would like to just tell this, you would recommend this kind of an approach to students who are right now, still studying?
I would 100%. If I'm being very honest, it is not easy to continue your studies when you're working. We have just heard it, but when you actually come into a job, it is really difficult. So if you have started from beforehand, it definitely lets you get through GMAT with ease when you are just starting to work. So I would definitely recommend that. And the edge that I think GMAT gives me is that, of course, I mean, it is accepted by everybody who's around you, your colleges or your people who give you a job, that GMAT is a test of your aptitude. So if
Correct.
you are those skills in GMAT and you are getting a decent score, it definitely gives that perception to people that you are good at these skills.
Right. So, any of these aspects of learning from GMAT, because Sandeep sir is not just teaching GMAT, there's KTW session that extends to understanding Know the World. I don't know if you'd got a chance to read or watch the videos yet, but any of it, did it apply anywhere in your life, in personal or professional life? Were you able to kind of implement any, like sometimes simple as those language, what you need to say and how you should be saying American English versus what is being taught. Do you mindfully apply that somewhere across? Do you see that happening?
Do you mean specifically with regards to the quant
In
skill
any
or
of these section, because it's logic, right? A lot of logical way of thinking per se. Do you see that happening? Because I hear a lot of people also applying that in their professional life or personal life. Did you get a chance so far to be thinking and applying like that practically?
I don't think I really got that chance till now, but nevertheless, I think with practice, whatever skills you have built into yourself, say for example, reading difficult passages allows you to read difficult newspaper texts or magazines. Say
Does.
for exactly, so these things are like very much part of your day-to-day life, and they get into your being uh, from the moment you start sort of practicing.
Right. I hope, there's more uh, so that you could really implement in your professional or personal life as well. Especially if you haven't watched KTW, you should watch, because you're starting out your journey or you've just fairly started new. You could really contribute a lot and connect to the right people, because when it is the time for you to get started with, your schools, you might want to give it. Probably you're thinking of giving a little weight and probably getting some more experience and then applying. But by then, right, you have to possibly gain as many networks as possible. And that happens with conversations, right? And conversations from wherever they are. Let's assume that you do have an opportunity to connect someone from outside India. And then you can't keep saying about what we are doing, what our country is. You have to just gain interest in theirs and give an interesting perspective. I hope this is a start for that. So, one last thing in your GMAT preparation, you would say, for any aspirants, be it undergrad students or anyone, what are the do's and don'ts that you would like to list down, Garima?
For me, do's would definitely be just stay true to the process. It is not easy to get up every day and solve those questions, but on the worst days, on the days when you don't want to do it, what you do on those days is what counts, I
Right.
think. So for me, that is definitely a do. And don't get distracted, because I think in our generation, distraction is so easily available, whether it is your friends or your even like or your mobile phones. I think
Social media.
distraction is so easily available. That is something definitely that I think troubles a lot of people.
You put it beautifully, and really, it is 100% true. It's not just among any peer, but overall, at large. given that the media consumes so much of our time, you really have to make sure to prioritize, right? Thank you so much for sharing this. One last thought, and what is your aim? Which schools are you please aiming to apply to, or a list of schools that are you aiming to apply to at the moment with the score?
Right. So I do not plan to, like I said, apply immediately. But whenever I do want to apply, London Business School, INSEAD are a few schools that I'm looking into.
Perfect, perfect. We'll stay connected. We have our admission consultant also, who has been an ex-Xavier student at the time. Connect with us whenever you are looking forward to applying. Just have a conversation. How do you go about, applying to these schools? But most importantly, now is the time that you, whatever value that you can add in your application, do that. Really wishing you all the very best and thanking you so much for joining me today, this first half of the day. I, I hope that admit, the post that comes through, yeah, that happens very quickly. But we've already connected on LinkedIn. I would really be happy to see what all progress that you make from now on. Congratulations again. And I obviously don't want to part without having congratulated, sharing the congratulation by Sandeep sir. He's extremely proud. And we are all very thankful that you have chosen top 1% for this part of your journey, right? All the very best. And thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Good day.